Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of GIS Bigfoot Answers. Today what we're looking at is a sighting in BC, British Columbia, Canada, and we're looking at the GIS Bigfoot Answers Encounters map. And these are encounters that have been submitted by the patrons of the Patreon channel. And I appreciate you guys entering in your encounters and your reports. Appreciate that. This particular report was submitted by a patron who said this was in a newspaper article from 1964, and it's just, as I said, in BC, south of Lytton, BC, 4 miles south. There's Lytton, BC. To give it some perspective, Lytton, BC is there, and to the east is Merritt, and to the west is Whistler. Whistler, BC. There's Whistler over there, Highway 99, and Demerit is over here, Highway 5. The sighting was on the Trans-Canada Highway, 4 miles south of Lytton, November 1964. And it's a Grandad Sasquatch, yes. So it's a visual sighting. And this was reported in the Times Colonist newspaper article. Elderly Sasquatch seen by the roadside. 7 feet tall with long legs weighing between 300 and 400 pounds. Short grayish brown hair. The face was like a withered old man. When approached by the witness, the Sasquatch raised its huge muscular arms in a surrender attitude. This was reported to the RCMP. So there was an old Grandad Sasquatch, and he looked all withered, and he was giving himself up. Had enough, I guess, of living out in the woods, but apparently the witness was driving his car, and he had a dog in the car with him, and the dog scared off the Sasquatch. So the story goes, and the Sasquatch had second thoughts about giving himself up and ran off into the woods. So let's have a closer look at this terrain. So you've got, obviously, there's mountains all around this valley. There's the Fraser River. And you've got, this is the valley. So you've got mountains on either side. It looks like First Nations reserves along here. A lot of woodland. You can see the contours, tight contours indicating a steep slope down towards the river on both sides. But the highway follows along the river. Highway 1, as you can see that, is the Trans-Canada Highway. So I'm just going to change the base map to imagery. And you can see how densely forested this is, and the mountains on either side of the Fraser River. Just a perfect squatchy place. There's the mountains over here as you get towards Whistler. Look at that. Wow, look at that imagery, isn't that? That's really cool. You can see the snow there. Very nice. But you never know, maybe the old squatchy had enough. Maybe he had enough of being out in the wilderness and he wanted to live the high life and maybe get in the back of this guy's car. But anyway, let's have a look at Google Street View and see what we can see here. Oh, we're in the clouds. Look at this. This is BC Highway. It says BC 1, Trans-Canada Highway. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's looking over west towards Whistler. Quite a way over, actually. And down in the valley should be the Fraser River. I don't know if we can see that. Imagine if you had a house here. There's some houses here that would be spectacular. Here's a question for you. I wonder if Google Street View has ever caught Sasquatch on film. Film. Not on film, is it? That's what the kids say. Did you get that on film? No, I didn't get it on film. It's digital. Anyway. Yeah, down here. Look at this. Wow, look at that. Squatchy. There's probably a whole load of them living up there. Probably a whole family. Whole community of them. Anyway, pretty cool. Really cool. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for more Sasquatch encounters. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of GIS Answers. Today we will be looking at Ontario, Canada, and we will be looking at one particular sighting by a policeman. This happened in October 1992, and it was north of Timmins near a place called Cochrane. And the police officer, he worked for the Durham Police Force for over 30 years, and that is just east of Toronto. So he would have worked down here in Durham. And the sighting took place in northern Ontario here. October 1992, nighttime sighting by policemen on the Trans-Canada Highway, 100 miles west of Cochrane. I'm not sure how accurate this point is, but there's Cochrane there. So let's switch over to the street space map. And there's the Trans-Canada Highway. So somebody's just put that point there in Cochrane. But anyway, the story is the most important part here because it's from a valid source, a police officer. So we're flipping to the BFRO website, and this is the sightings report. It's a Class A sighting, 1992, October the 4th. First, I've never told anyone about the sighting until this year. I've worked for the Durham Regional Police Force and have since 1979. I was going moose hunting, and my friend was driving. We had been on the road about 9 or 10 hours, going to Ignis, Ontario. We were about 100 miles west of Cochrane, Ontario, on the Trans-Canada Highway. This area has the bush cut back some 30 to 40 yards on each side of the road when I noticed an animal coming out of the north side of the ditch and run across two-lane highway. We were about 100 yards away and moving up fast, as we were driving about 65 to 70 miles an hour, 100 to 115 kilometers an hour. This animal ran across the road on two legs, and we were about 20 yards away. By the time it crossed the road, my friend turned to me and said, "What the hell was that?" I said, "Don't you know that was a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot?" He turned to me and said it was not. I'm not going to have people call me nuts. So I said, okay, what was it? He said a man in a fur suit. We argued about this for a few minutes, even though we were about 100 miles away from the nearest town. So this is in the middle of nowhere, by the way. This is so remote. This is like 10 hours north of Toronto. Very remote. Now let me describe this animal. It was about 6 to 7 feet tall, very long and muscular arms that went down to its knees. It was covered in fur that reminded me of moose hair. It did turn to look at the truck we were driving, the Chevy 4x4. It looked like it was as tall or a little bit taller than the cab of the truck. It only took about 5 or 6 steps across the two-lane highway and down into the ditch we were passing. It was at night, between 7 and 10 p.m. It was just his friend and him in the truck. His friend says he saw nothing because he did not want to be called nuts. It was cold and crisp, around 37 degrees Fahrenheit. This is northern Ontario, Canada. It's all pine forest, cedar, evergreens. This area is, as far as I can tell, at night fairly flat. The witness provided a little more detail with regards to the description of the creature. He described it as female because of breasts that were in the lower chest area, heavy legs and buttocks, about 300 to 400 pounds, 7 feet tall, and arms that hung down to the knee area. He further adds that it had the same color and texture of hair as a moose, being black with coarse hair. Apparently it had less hair on the chest area. Partial hair covered the hominoid face. The witness says that he could see muscle definition on the arms and shoulders. As it crossed the road in front of their vehicle, it turned its upper torso to look at them, and then continued to make its way into the tree line on the south side. The entire sighting took around 10 seconds. He advised that he had a camera with him in the vehicle, but did not even think of it at the time due to the disbelief in what he was seeing. So there you go. That is a witness account from a police officer. Pretty neat. Believe it if you want to, and there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of GIS Answers. Today what we'll be looking at is Alert Bay, BC, Canada, so British Columbia, Canada, and this is an island just off of Vancouver Island, and what we have in the red crosses are sightings, and yeah, we've got the world imagery as a backdrop, satellite imagery behind. For reference, here's Seattle in the United States, and obviously north is Canada, and this island is Vancouver Island, and quite a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings in Canada, believed to be some of the best habitat for Sasquatch to live. Very wooded, lots of vegetation, potentially lots of food to eat, and the climate and the water to sustain a Bigfoot. Alert Bay is right in here, and what I'm going to show is a video from CTV News, and the local residents here have had some sightings as well as some audio of what they think is a Sasquatch.
A community off northern Vancouver Island is at the center of an eerie mystery. People in Alert Bay say they've been hearing strange screams and howls from the forest at night. And the legend of the Sasquatch runs deep in their First Nations culture. As CTV's Gord Kurbis reports, some are now wondering if those legends are real.
It's an eerie recording captured on a cell phone of something that's making strange howling noises heard throughout Alert Bay.
We heard it once, and I didn't get the recording. And then second time, I got the recording. And that's when I was on the back porch. Very eerie.
The audio was recorded just recently on the backside of Cormorant Island. It's been heard by many all over the island.
So flipping back to the map, Cormorant Island and Alert Bay would be the town or the village. Let's have a look at this. This island, approximately 2.5 miles long, not very wide, only a mile wide at the most. So it's not a very big island. The ocean, this channel, only, less than 2 miles on either side. If the residents are hearing, let's have a look at this. There's another larger island to the north, which is 14 miles long. But then you have Vancouver Island on the other side. So audio, vocalizations would travel. If they're that loud, they could potentially travel across water quite easily on a calm day or a calm night. You could see how those vocalizations could travel many miles. So perhaps the audio, the sounds were coming from Vancouver Island, possibly, or maybe maybe there is actually a Bigfoot on Cormorant Island in Alert Bay. So it's really, really wooded between the town and the ocean. So it would be quite wooded. Just a small village, really, but there is an airport, a small airport. They've got quite an infrastructure here: community healthcare, schools, churches, a harbor. So it sounds like a really, really nice place. And let's go back and finish off the video.
I've heard it 3 times. I've heard it scream 3 times. But it's been coming here for years.
Whatever's been making the noise is heard primarily at night. Some say it's a dog, but others say that's impossible.
With that volume, absolutely nothing. No dog can make that kind of a noise with that volume.
Art Dick hears the vocalizations just outside of his home. He's convinced the calls are from a Sasquatch. He believes the creature is real because of several previous encounters. Like several years ago on a remote island further south when a tree was thrown at himself and fellow clam diggers.
Pulled the tree right out of the ground. The branches were still on it. I don't know anything that can just literally pull a tree with roots and all. I mean, you know, you see that little alder growing out there. You try to go and pull it out, you're not going to be able to do it.
So there you have it. Yeah, so there's a few sightings in the database, the BFRO database, probably like 40 miles away from each. Let's just have a look at them. 1992, memory told of an inquisitive Sasquatch sighted near Port Hardy. March 2013, seasoned outdoors couple hear possible vocalizations while gathering firewood. And then further south, yeah, lots of sightings down in the southern part of Vancouver Island, down by Nanaimo. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thanks a lot. Bye. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of GIS Bigfoot Answers. Today what we're looking at is a sighting in BC, British Columbia, Canada, and we're looking at the GIS Bigfoot Answers Encounters map. And these are encounters that have been submitted by the patrons of the Patreon channel. And I appreciate you guys entering in your encounters and your reports. Appreciate that. This particular report was submitted by a patron who said this was in a newspaper article from 1964. And it's just, as I said, in BC, south of Lytton, BC, 4 miles south. There's Lytton, BC. To give it some perspective, Lytton, BC is there, and to the east is Merritt, and to the west is Whistler. Whistler, BC. There's Whistler over there, Highway 99. And Merritt is over here, Highway 5. The sighting was on the Trans-Canada Highway, 4 miles south of Lytton, November 1964. And it's a Grandad Sasquatch. Yes. So it's a visual sighting. And this was reported in the Times Colonist newspaper article. Elderly Sasquatch seen by the roadside, 7 feet tall with long legs weighing between 300 and 400 pounds. Short grayish brown hair. The face was like a withered old man. When approached by the witness, the Sasquatch raised its huge muscular arms in a surrender attitude. This was reported to the RCMP. So yeah, so there was an old Grandad Sasquatch, and he looked all withered, and he was giving himself up. He had enough, I guess, of living out in the woods, but apparently the witness was driving his car, and he had a dog in the car with him, and the dog scared off the Sasquatch. So the story goes, and the Sasquatch had second thoughts about giving himself up and ran off into the woods. So let's have a closer look at this terrain. So you've got, obviously, there's mountains all around this valley. There's the Fraser River. And you've got, this is the valley. So you've got mountains on either side. It looks like First Nations reserves along here. A lot of woodland. You can see the contours, tight contours indicating a steep slope down towards the river on both sides. But the highway follows along the river. Highway 1, as you can see that, is the Trans-Canada Highway. So I'm just going to change the base map to imagery. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of GIS Bigfoot Answers. Today what we're looking at is a sighting in Perth, Ontario. And that's located about an hour away from the capital city of Canada, known as Ottawa, and probably 3 hours away from Toronto. So what we're looking at is the GIS Bigfoot Answers Encounters app map, and this sighting was submitted by a Patreon, and I'd like to say thanks to the patrons for supporting this channel. And you can have access to submit your own encounters to be featured on this channel. So if you join up with Patreon or YouTube memberships, you will get access to that. You can also send in your encounters to bigfootanswers@gmail.com. So we're going to zoom in on this sighting. We'll have a look at the geographic area and see what we can see. So, Perth, Ontario, May 1st of last year. There's an awful smell and bipedal footsteps late at night. 4 people witnessed it as we pulled up for the weekend at a cottage. It was late evening. It smelt like garbage and dead fish. Growling and squealing came from the dense forest close to the cottage. Then the animal moved along next to the cottage within a few yards of us. It was bipedal. You could hear the steps creeping along in the forest. Well, that's pretty cool. So 4 people witnessed this. A smell like garbage, and the bipedal footsteps, and the growling and squealing. It's interesting. I don't recall hearing squealing, or I don't recall hearing anything about squealing before. So interesting. So this is on Christy Lake, and the Tay River flows into Christy Lake. And it's close to Highway 7, which is a major or a main artery in Ontario. Just a single lane highway. For the most part, there are some passing lanes in some of the areas, and further towards Toronto, it would get into 4 lanes. So let's have a look. The base map, we'll switch that over to satellite imagery. And as you can see, a lot of wooded area, lakes, wetlands, and the cottages are quite dense here along and around this Christy Lake, but you can see how there is wooded areas and wetlands right up between the cottages, and some areas right up against the shoreline. So right here you can see how the wetland, basically is, part of Christy Lake, right on Christy Lake. And there's a trail here. Looks like perhaps an old rail bed that's now a recreational trail. You can see how this is like a huge area right around the sighting. Let's measure this. Some residential areas as well as agricultural areas. 2,000 acres right there, easily accessible with like maybe one or two roads. And as I said before, that recreational trail which wouldn't have a lot of traffic on it. Might have a few people using it for walking and ATVs. And again, as you go west, it's another area, probably of 2,000 acres. So like a large potential area for Bigfoot to live. So some good habitat there for Sasquatch. So we're going to look at the Google Street Maps. Oh, there's the Tay River. Okay. So very nice. Look at that. But you can see how I was talking about like wetlands being along the edge of the lake, and cottages. Quite dense woods right up against the road. Look at that. There isn't a lot of space between the road and the woods, but there's the lake there. Quite nice. So you can see how it's quite wooded, and cottages and residential homes are between these various land uses. But you can see like it is really wooded. Yeah, look at this. A real mix of land uses. Just want to see what this is like up here, see if it's similar. Yeah, look at that. You can see how this would be quite squatchy. These lanes, these small roads with lakes on one side and wooded areas on the other. So here we are looking at the BFRO database and the sightings in this area to see if there's any comparables. So here's one right on Christy Lake, or around Christy Lake. And here's the sighting, possible daytime sighting by boaters and by a walker in the morning between Perth and Westport. So Westport's further to the south. Here's one in Westport. There's Westport there. Possible wood knock responses heard near Westport. Daytime sighting behind a cabin near Westport. So yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of sightings in Canada, but right in and around this area, it seems to be a hotspot. So let's have a look at report 30249, and the date was 2007. September 2007. A group of us take our annual fishing trip to a lake that is halfway between Perth and Westport in Ontario. This is Christy Lake. One of the guys, Harry, on the trip had a quadruple bypass surgery a few years earlier, and he wakes up to walk 8 to 10 miles each morning around 5:30. On Friday morning, he got up for his normal walk. While turning around the corner toward the owner's house, saw something in the darkness next to the owner's deck. He had an LED flashlight and shined it on the deck, 40 to 50 yards max. Thing was reaching over the deck railing, and upon having the light shined on it, turned away and slowly walked away from the deck towards an open field and east towards the forest, turning away from him. Harry continued on his walk. On the way back, he stopped at the deck, still very early, but now daybreak, and measured the height. Where the creature's upper thigh came on the deck was the same as his mid-chest. At this point, Harry said nothing about it to anyone. The following day, Saturday, we have our annual fishing derby, which isn't very serious. It runs from 9 a.m. to noon. After deciding the winners, which gets your name engraved on a trophy, everyone either hangs out at the cottage, goes to town, or goes back out fishing. Two of our more dedicated guys decided to go back out after lunch. The lake has a river on the opposite end from where we stay, that flows in from the southwest end and exits the northeast end. That's the Tay River. The guys, Matt and Tom, went to the inlet of the lake and went as far up the river as they could, probably a mile or so. Then they drifted down the river fishing for bass. As they approached the mouth of the river, which is, I think, where I had that point on the map, they were on the north shore of the river. There was a canoe with two people paddling up the river and talking, closer to the south shore of the river. As they looked at the folks in the canoe, they both saw an animal on the shore behind the canoe, observing the people in the canoe. Tom said to Matt, "Hey, Matt, check out that." And they both watched the animal walk along the bog and step up and over the bank to the marsh into the brush to disappear. I've since been on the other side of that marshy bog location. There's no way a human can or would get up there, let alone move easily. That evening, we were all sitting in the living room as usual, reflecting on the day after a few beers. I will never forget Tom saying something like, "All right, I gotta say something. I don't know what I saw, but it got up on 2 feet, walked along the shore, and went where nobody could go." As he was speaking, Harry and I was just about to take a sip, and we both stopped dead cold and said, "Oh, fuck." I just convinced myself I didn't see what I did. Harry then told what he had seen the morning before while on his walk. We were leaving the next day, and nobody bothered to check for footprints or anything. If you have been conditioned to think something doesn't exist, you don't react the way people may think. If I had a chance to go back that day, I would have been back in the woods at both ends of the lake looking for signs of footprints. It wasn't until the ride home that I really started to think about what happened. During the following week, we slowly started Googling for websites. We found the BFRO had an encounter reported from the scout camp on the same lake in the 90s. There has been a report from the cabin outside of Westport about 10 months after our encounter. I have since placed game cameras, started with 2 and up to 6 now in the area. We get great photos of deer, raccoon, porcupine, and a fisher, but no squatch. Wow. It's amazing, this is so close to the sighting that we had, the report that we had. So let's hop back and have a look at this area. And this is, I believe they were up this river and drifting down, doing their bass fishing. And this is a sighting that was reported by Patreon members. And I do believe that was in here, in and around this area, possibly, I'm not saying for sure, but possibly where that BFRO sighting took place. So, and then there was another one on this lake somewhere else, and also in Westport. So there you have it. Really, really super interesting. Is it just a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's, these were sightings from multiple people. It's just fascinating. It really is. Let me know what you think. Hey everyone, hopefully you're all doing well out there today. Today we'll be looking at a sighting in British Columbia from 1977. It's a really good one. One that I thought was quite unique. It's different from some of the other sightings. So get your favorite cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a beer, and we'll have a look at this sighting. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. So this sighting is in BC, as I said, in British Columbia, Canada, and it's located in the Fraser Valley, which isn't really that far from Vancouver. You think of, here's Vancouver, the city, and let's see how far that is from Vancouver. 50 miles. But you're getting into the Rocky Mountains, so it's just by Chilliwack, BC. And what we're looking at is the GIS Bigfoot Answers map. And this sighting was reported by a Patreon member. And when you become a member of either the Patreon channel or the YouTube channel, you get access to plot your sighting on a map. But this was a sighting that was reported in several newspapers. The member put this information in, and I really enjoyed receiving this report. It's very interesting. So let's zoom in. And on this map, you can change the background. Right now, we have the topographic map background, but you can change it to imagery. So you have satellite imagery. The red dots represent the sightings. You have streets at night, which is a black background with the roads as blue. So we'll switch back to the topographic map. And the occurrence happened on Highway 7 near Rock Lake. There's the lake and there's the highway. 1977, May 17th. It was reported in several newspapers. Bus passengers see a furry, upright creature over 300 pounds, dark brown or black, and about 7 feet tall lumber across the highway. Pacific Stage Line's bus company driver was the main witness, along with other passengers. This was reported to the RCMP Police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The bus driver slammed on the brakes and he stopped. He smelled something like terrible rotten meat. The brush was thick and pushed apart where the animal went through. It had flared nostrils like a monkey and big wide eyes. It had a wide chest as it looked at the bus driver. The skin underneath the hair looked white. Police say passenger statements match the bus drivers, and they are taking the issue seriously. Police located footprints 14 inches long by 8 inches wide on a sandy creek bottom nearby. The account was reported in several newspapers. So, assuming, maybe it happened down here. So you got the Canadian Pacific Railroad as well as the main highway, and let's just have a measure to see how far the lake would have been. So yeah, 200 feet away. And it doesn't look like there's anything to the west, maybe mountains. So you got mountains, the highway, the railway, and then the lake, and maybe some small residential subdivision on the lake. Quite mountainous over here, Harrison Hill. So it looks like the start of the Rocky Mountains. All right, let's have a look at this in Google Maps. So we're looking at this in Google Maps. We'll look at Google Street View. Fraser Valley, Rock Lake. Beautiful. Well, look at the mountains. Very nice. Yeah, you could easily see how you see a squatch zipping in front of the bus and into the woods. But they did get enough time to have a look at this animal, or creature, or whatever you want to call it. Over 7 feet tall, over 300 pounds, dark brown to black, big nostrils and big dark eyes. Opens up to Harrison Bay and Harrison River. Oh, look at this. Sasquatch Inn. What's that all about? Let's have a look at this Sasquatch Inn. It's a 2-star motel. Good rating, though. Almost 1,500 ratings, and it's got a 4.3 out of 5. Sasquatch Inn, just north of the sighting. Maybe it has something to do with the sighting. Very interesting. Oh, it's got 659 photos. We won't have a look at all of those, but oh, look, quite nice. Oh, wow. Very nice. Nice patio. Oh, look at the front. It's like a small Great Wolf Lodge. Oh, look, Sasquatch Inn. Good footprint, and established in 1936. So this was 40 years before. Oh, look, 40 years before the sighting. This is only up the road. This is just up the road from where the sighting took place. Sasquatch Inn, they've got vacancies. But look at that. Look at that logo and that sign. Looks really cool. Another Sasquatch there. Looks like some good food there. Some good sandwiches. A beer, nice beer, yeah. I could always go for one of those. Some native art. That's the Sasquatch Inn. Let's go back. Let's go back and see if there's any other sightings in and around this area. We're just having a quick look at the BFRO map, so bfro.net. So the sighting we're looking at today from 1977, Iraq Lake is one just up the road, same highway. Newspaper article, Fresno Bee, University of California students plan expedition to BC. Okay. And further up the highway again, October 2004, couple hears back and forth vocalizations between 5 and 6 a.m. where the Harrison and the Chehalis rivers join. So that's not far away. And these are just reports to the BFRO. There's another one, November 2003, unusual call, silenced the coyotes and frightened the dog. Yeah, so a lot of reports haven't been provided to the BFRO in Canada. There's very few. I wouldn't say very few, but there's definitely less reports. Possible knocking heard by hikers in the Chilliwack Valley. That's March 2006. June 2008, campers describe possible vocalizations and a possible track in Chilliwack Lake Provincial Park. Well, there you have it, guys. That's a pretty interesting sighting, and it was reported to the RCMP, the Canadian Police, and it was reported in several newspapers. So pretty exciting stuff. Hopefully you're having a good day out there today, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.